Greetings, my people. Greetings, my people. And others. Today is Monday, August 17th, 2026. The time is 10:47 a.m. And as I titled this one, um, why Sophie Cunningham or Caitlin Clark is so important to America, or why they love them so much in a nutshell, right? And it's not really hard to figure out. If you know, you know, right? And if you don't, you don't, right? And I'm just going to start off by saying they love them because they're able to use them as a conduit to push their agenda, push their narratives, and push whatever, right? And what is their agenda and what's their narratives, right? You might ask. What exactly is their agenda and narratives? Well, the only thing that this administration does is push a lot of fear mongering, right? It's always the invasion of something. Something or somebody is under attack. Somebody is the enemy that needs to be protected from. Somebody is violating some right? There's no real policies. There's no real working policies, right? They don't exist. But what it is a bunch of fear-mongering tactics, right? And the WNBA is just the latest thing to colonize and take over under the name of fear and protection. And where it really kind of started was with the whole thing of Caitlin Clark is under attack. And whenever you start, because it started in college, right? And then it just ballooned, and it ballooned, and it ballooned more. And on top of that, like, narratives are the things that run with this. Like, a narrative is why a lot of people think the way they think. Like, I honestly understand, if you understand propaganda, you understand that your thoughts and your mindset is not exactly yours. Like, most white Americans and most lost black Americans and other Americans are all under attack, are all under a conditioning of some sort, all under some narrative of some sort, right? And you're just following it, be whatever it may be, right? But the narrative started with Caitlin Clark that, first of all, the girls were jealous of her. And not only were they jealous, but they were after her. They were out to get her. And it just ballooned, it ballooned, and ballooned. And I'm going to say this year they were really able to stick their hooks in and push the narrative the way they wanted, right? And on top of being able to push the narrative the way they wanted, they had a motive. So whenever Congress gets behind, like, and when the whole thing of Dejanay Carrington happened, how you doing? When the whole thing of Dejanay Carrington happened, you know, we're gonna get into it with the Florida Attorney General, right? And they love to play you, peace, how y'all doing? And they love to play you as if we're just delusional. We don't know what we're talking about. And when Dejanay Carrington uttered those two words, white privilege, oh, how dare she? And then they love to play this game with you. They said, well, she went to Stanford, so if anybody is privileged, no. Don't play that game. Do not play that game. Do not play that game. But that's the thing, what they do. To be in America is to constantly be in a state of being gaslit. To be in America is in a constant state of being gaslit and told that what you believe and what you're seeing and finding for yourself is not what you see. Who are you going to believe, you or your lying eyes? So what Dejanay Carrington, an example that I will give of white privilege for the Indiana Fever, she never said toward the referee, Emmanuel Acho. But one of the examples I will give is that took place on July 7th of this year, July 7th, 2026. And it reads, Congress of the United States, Washington, D.C., 205 515, right? July 7th, 2026. And it reads, Kathy Engelbert, I hate your stinking guts. That's always the little rascal. Dear darling, I hate your stinking guts. But anyway, let's be serious. Kathy Engelbert, Commissioner, Women's National Basketball Association, 645 Fifth Avenue, New York, 10022. And then it gets into the letter. Now, this is what she's talking about. This is one of the examples that I will give of what Dejanay Carrington is talking about white privilege, right? And then we're gonna get into what privilege actually is. Dear Commissioner Engelbert, Caitlin Clark is transforming women's sports. She has inspired a new generation of young girls to participate in athletics and has become one of the most influential figures in the history of women's basketball. Now, this is one of the things of how they make something so with no proof. It's an opinion, but they're going to make it fact, right? She is the face of your league. That's debatable. That's debatable. But when it's coming from high authority, we have a tendency to take it as if it's fact, just like 6 feet social distancing. They were able to tell us 6 feet social distancing was a fact. And a lot of them fell for it. No question asked why, because the TV said it. Right? Okay. All right. She is the face of your league. Clark has significantly increased fan interest, driven record television ratings, and attracted a new corporate sponsor for the WNBA. Millions of casual fans now tune in to watch her play. And the key word is that casuals, right? Casual fans tune in to watch her play. Unfortunately, what they too often witness is not simply aggressive competition, but repeated acts of unnecessary physical hostility and violence. And I want you to understand how they're able to word things, right? It's like when they're talking about January 6th, right? They'll call it an insurrection to minimize the threat, to minimize what it actually was. But if it's anybody else, they're going to say riot. The way they're able to use words against you, how do I know? Because I have a degree in journalism. Because I actually graduated broadcasting school. So to understand how you're being able to talk, how you're being taught, how you're even able to, you're taught to speak, to push certain inflection on the words, because certain words and certain ways that they have an inflection taps on your mental state. If I'm talking about animal abuse, I'm not gonna use a high exciting voice. Hey, you see, millions of dogs are being abused. I'm not gonna use an exciting tone. I'm gonna use a millions and millions of animals are abused every day. That matters. How you're being spoken to, how your consciousness and your subconscious is being spoken to matters, whether you know it or not. But let's continue with the letter. Right? Casual fans tune in to watch her play. Unfortunately, what they too often witness is not simply aggressive competition, but repeated acts of unnecessary physical hostility and violence. Clark has been hip checked. Now, the thing that gets me, and I had to tell a white guy on my page this morning, they pretend as if she's the only white girl or the first ever white girl that has ever come into this league. They don't understand that there was the likes of Lauren Jacksons. There was the likes of Diana Taurasi, who just had her jersey retired. They don't understand that there's the likes of Sue Birds, Penny Tollers, Rebecca Lobo. They don't understand that there has been countless white girls that come into the league and ball out. Sue Bird is a baller. But that's not what they want to do. They want to impress upon your mind. They want to come in and say, oh, you guys are being racist, because that's the narrative that's being driven around. Now, continue. Remember what I said. Listen to the wording in the writing. This is why you think the way you think when you're listening to stories. Clark has been hip-checked, poked in the eye, and struck in the throat during games. These incidences go far beyond physical play. Yet the WNBA and its officiating have too often failed to address these unacceptable incidences and hold players accountable. Recently, a player even appeared to endorse violence against Clark in a social media post. I would like to know what player that was. In a social media post, further fueling concerns about the culture surrounding these incidences. In addition, concern reports suggest that many of these attacks against Caitlin Clark may be racially motivated. But they tell us we make everything about race. Why does Dejanay Carrington have to say that? Why does Dejanay Carrington? This is the Congress. As much as we have going on as a country, as much as we have going on, this is a pressing matter that they're pushing. Why they want to use Sophie Cunningham? Why? We ain't even got to Sophie Cunningham yet. Why they want to use Caitlin Clark? Because she fits the narrative. She's not the only white girl, but she's the perfect white girl that the machine can get behind, that Fox News can get behind and push this narrative of this dooming threat. Because what did I say in the beginning? This administration has no real good policies. They only have fear-mongering. And this is why the Trump administration, and this is why Trump followers, MAGA followers, this is why smart people don't like him. This is why he loves the poorly educated. Because when I do those, meanwhile, in MAGA news, when I do those videos, you see the intellectual, intelligent level of the average white American. They say the most idiotic things, but they're able to read and hear things like this and have things like this implanted in their minds, and they will run with it and say, Caitlin Clark was struck in the throat. She's been physically assaulted. Hip checking is in the game. But they're able to shape your narrative and make you think that these black girls are all against her. Right? Let's continue. But they said, now let me read that last part. Further fueling concerns about the culture surrounding these incidences. In addition, concerning reports suggest that many of these attacks against Caitlin Clark may be racially motivated. No fact, just opinion, but it's coming from Congress, so it must be true. And then they light into Commissioner Engelbert, who I think is just a scary Jerry and won't do anything and gonna hide under the table. As commissioner, you have an obligation to ensure that every player competes in a safe and professional environment, both on and off the court, free from violence, discrimination, or retaliation. If discrimination or retaliation is occurring and creating hostile work environments, we support any appropriate investigations by the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, or Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. If true, such conduct could constitute violations of federal civil rights laws. It is imperative that the WNBA take meaningful action to address this issue. The league has an extraordinary opportunity to inspire the next generation of female athletes to pursue athletics, but that opportunity is undermined when its brightest stars are not adequately protected. Your fans deserve better. We sure do. We sure do. Your fans deserve better, and so do the young girls who look to the WNBA as a model for excellence, sportsmanship, and opportunity. And then they sign their signatures. So, what do I read? What did I read that letter from the Congress to the WNBA for? Because when Dejanay Carrington says white privilege, show me any other player, show me any other black player or other that has gotten that privilege. See, racist white Americans love to pretend the obvious don't exist. Because if you ask the average American, they're hardworking. They don't have any type of assistance. They just get everything off of their own merit. And they get everything off of their own hard opportunity. Meanwhile, it's everybody else that leeches off the system. It's everybody else. And they're in a constant state of denial. Right? So now, let's get to Sophie Cunningham. And it's mighty funny as somebody in the comments said, laugh out loud. You're a hater. That's final. Right? But it's mighty funny when Megyn Kelly goes on to attack Caitlin Clark. It is somebody like me that defended her. Because I don't have a motive against Caitlin Clark. But I see when Chelsea Gray is being sent racial threats, and then they say, well, that was a deranged, again, being fed a narrative, that was a deranged sports bettor. I had a dude over the weekend that I was having a conversation with. And when I brought that part up, he said, well, you got to understand that that was a deranged sports bettor that called Chelsea Gray the N-word. And I said, based off of the insult that he gave her and called her the N-word, what about that context of what he said implies that he lost money? He said, well, I can't tell you that exactly. Because what it is, whatever political wing that you decide to flap to, once you fall under whatever narrative that it feeds you, you're going to go with it. It doesn't have to be true. Because what we don't talk about is the dumbing down of the American adults. We love to talk about how a lot of these children aren't reading on grade level, but a lot of these adults aren't thinking on adult level. To watch the WNBA, I always say I'm an old school OG Kim Perrott WNBA fan. Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Cynthia Cooper. I've been watching since back in the day. But what they want to impress upon you, because now a bunch of stiff old white boys and a bunch of stiff old white girls decide to watch. Now it's important. Now she's putting eyes and she's putting attention. No, attention has been on the game. What has not been behind it is the media. And they still don't push the W. This is the 30th year and it's being hijacked by foolish. Right? But I promise to talk about Sophie, who is a basic Becky that really has not much talent. Sophie Cunningham is not that good. She's decent. But what they're able to do, because somebody put a battery in Sophie Cunningham, and it just so happened that, to be interesting, that she's MAGA adjacent. MAGA Barbie. She's MAGA adjacent. Wasn't she the ring girl at one of the UFC events? So it's mighty funny that they picked these two white girls that MAGA and Congress can surround, or whoever else that wants to use them as a conduit to push their agenda. So all of a sudden, Sophie Cunningham words comes back to bite her when she's asked about transgenders in the sport. I have no problem. Hold the line. If that's what you feel, speak on it. Stand on it, Sophie Cunningham. But what's not cool is that when the heat really gets turned up, after she doubles down and the heat gets turned up, she says, "Can we just go back to talking about basketball?" I'm paraphrasing. It's so many other things that's happening in the league. Can we just go back to talking about? No. Once you draw that line, you got to stand on it. So what happens now? Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and all the other real basketball players on the Indiana Fever, all the other real basketball players on the Indiana Fever are left to answer these questions that Sophie Cunningham started. And she left, and Caitlin Clark was left out to dry because of something she started. So when Caitlin says, "Yo, this ain't none of my business," paraphrasing, "this ain't none of my business, yo, I don't have nothing to do with that." Then Megyn Kelly jumps up with her Epstein minimizing self. Megyn Kelly runs to the front line with her Epstein minimizing self. Let me say it one more time. Megyn Kelly runs to the front line with her Epstein minimizing self and called Caitlin Clark a coward. Right? Because the funny thing is about with stiff racist, prejudiced white folks, they will tell you to keep politics out of sports when it benefits them. When they don't feel it's important, they'll tell you, "Hey, stick to sports. Shut up and dribble." Laura Ingram. Shut up and dribble. Shut up and play. Why is Colin Kaepernick kneeling in the middle of a game? He never kneeled in the middle of a game. But when they see fit and they want you to speak, it's you owe the young girls better. You owe the young girls. Their league is under attack. Their lives, they're getting the shit kicked out of them. Why aren't you speaking, Caitlin? Now you want Caitlin to speak up. But when there was Alyssa Thomas, her family, Chelsea Gray, and countless others, hell, a racist white boy threatened to lynch Emmanuel Acho just for speaking. About the WNBA and against Caitlin Clark in a manner that he didn't like. He literally said Emmanuel Acho is going to get hung or hung up. He said the fucking blacks don't own the league. Whenever they say the effing blacks. But they want us to pretend, why are you guys making everything about racism? Because to be in America is to be in a constant state of being gaslit. Because it's a do as I say, not as I do. Respond to what I want you to respond to. Because they have this innate inferiority thing or superiority thing about them that they feel like that they are the judge, juror, and executioner of everything, and that and how they see things is the final say. So Megyn Kelly wants Caitlin Clark to jump off the porch and speak against an issue that's a non-issue. Now you have those disgraced dudes, Enes Kanter and Royce White, that's actually making the situation worse. Enes Kanter is a joke. Royce White is a joke. But let's continue on Sophie Cunningham. Right? So, after the Dejanay foul, it's a hard foul. Okay, it's a technical. If you want to eject, you're cool. And they keep saying, when I point out the hypocrisy of when Caitlin Clark gives the same type of foul against Jordan Canada of the Atlanta Dream, it's nothing. It's a basketball play. When Sophie Cunningham puts on a non-basketball play and foul against J.C. Sheldon, they're both tossed. They get into a scuffle and they're both tossed. Now, what's the point? What are you talking about? So why was Dejanay Carrington the only one tossed after Sophie Cunningham struck her? If Congress gets to say Alyssa Thomas struck Caitlin in the throat, and she did not strike her in the throat. If they go back and actually watch the play, but a lot of times these racist white folks don't even watch the games. They just react to whatever being said. But if you go back and actually watch that play between Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas, you see that she did not strike her in the throat. It was a basketball play. She actually tried not to step on Caitlin. Was her hand near her throat? Absolutely. Caitlin Clark gets up and continues to play. We know Caitlin Clark is the ultimate actress, so if she would have been struck, she would have laid on the floor like a dead duck or a limp noodle or something that's paralyzed. So if she was struck, she would have made sure everybody in the arena saw it. But it wasn't that type of play, and what happens is they made them suspend Alyssa Thomas because of the outcry of the media. Why? Because they have to fearmonger and say they're trying to destroy, like the white boy on my post. He said, and one thing about them, they never know how to stick on topic. You could be talking about something, but this is what they do. They will try to move the topic to benefit what they want to talk about, and they will colonize the conversation and make it about, take your talking point and delete it and make it about what they want to talk about. Typical white American or white nationalism 101. But for the basketball play between Dejanay Carrington of the Chicago Sky and Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever, Florida Attorney General James Othmeyer, now this is what it says, threatens to file criminal charges against WNBA players following a hard foul during a basketball game. Let me read that again. Florida Attorney General James Othmeyer threatens to file criminal charges against WNBA players following a hard foul. But they want to play Dejanay Carrington as if she's crazy. It goes on to say, the incident. Dejanay Carrington of the Chicago Sky received a flagrant 2 foul and was ejected after a hard hit on Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever. Following the ejection, Dejanay Carrington posted in all caps, "white privilege" on social media, adding to the online debate surrounding the play. The Attorney General's warning. James Othmeyer posted on social media that he would charge WNBA players with assault and battery for similar physical aggression. Really? James Othmeyer posted on social media that he would charge players with assault and battery for similar physical aggression. Really? So now it's criminal to play basketball. But they love to tell you what's happening, not really happening, because it's a total constant mind screw. He stated that the league knows better than to play games down here in Florida. So you're threatening women over basketball plays. Now, this is the same James Othmeyer that wants to go against the NFL for its Rooney Rule. But what we're seeing is not what we're seeing, because everything is about fairness and merit-based. They don't care about the color, let them tell it. They just want the best players for the position. We don't care about color, we want fairness. But it's a react to Sophie Cunningham. Why? Because Sophie Cunningham they put a battery in her back to lead her to speak out about the LGBTQ. or the T specifically. And what's always funny with that debate right there is because it's a foolishness nowheresville that if you're going to honor this in the WNBA and in the NBA, shout out to Jaden Ivey that stood on business and said, "Yo, I ain't down with this NBA supportive pride night." And he lost and he lost out on things. He lost out on opportunity to stand up. That's what real happens to real one. They don't get attorney generals to stand in their corner and threaten to file charges on their behalf. Court Karens. Now tell me if it's about fairness and merit-based and all of this stuff, that these BS words that they want to feed you. Show us the fairness. Show us the equality. Because when they're receiving racist threats, they're not concerned about the safety of the players. They're not concerned about on and off the court safety. They could care less because they're black women. But the world must stop for these two court Karens because they want to impress upon your impressionable minds that somebody is constantly doing something to them. And that is why Dejanay Carrington called it what she called it. She said what she said. No mistake. But that's me. So like, share, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about this in the comments. Peace.